Welcome to the Nursing Post podcast, All Nursing All the Time with Ashley Moore and Rosa Horsley. In honor of Nurses Week, we've decided that this episode should be about wanting to be the nurse that you want to work with. And our goal, as always, is to inform and start conversation.
How many of us at some point in our nursing careers have thought to ourselves or even discussed with other nurses if nursing was really the right career for us? And I think with 2020, that has definitely pushed nurses to the brink. Although it was supposed to be the
year of the nurse.
Yes. I think that it did bring a lot of awareness to the nursing profession. But how many nurses would actually say, if I had to start all over with school, I would still choose nursing? And I think that that's kind of a hard question to think about and to really dig deep and answer. And I think for most of us, nursing isn't just a career. It's a calling to truly want to help people. And that's what leads us to that profession, not just, I want to be a nurse. So the big question that we're going to try to answer today, and what we find to be some really good points that we could start on, is how do we find the positive side of nursing through all the negativity, especially with the last year?
Absolutely. I was able to find some statistics. Nursing represents the largest occupation in the health career sector. It accounts for 59% of healthcare professionals. And this is according to the WHO organization. 38% of nurses are below the age of 35, while 17% are 55 and above. 15.6% of all nurses reported feelings of burnout, which I think 2020 probably did help with that a lot.
I'm surprised that that's not
More.
higher.
Yeah, I agree. And then 41% of them felt as if they were just unengaged and checked out. They say they were unengaged because of emotional exhaustion, and 30.7% of those had symptoms of depression. Some of them felt depersonalized, like their place of employment just saw them as a number. Everybody's replaceable, or that famous one we always hear, a warm body. And 68% of nurses that were surveyed for the study said that they put their health, their safety, and their wellness of their patients before their own.
I have no doubt, how many of us literally don't go to the bathroom or don't drink water because
don't
we
eat
know
lunch. It's just like an ongoing thing.
It really is. And when you think about like, oh, let me eat something really quick. And, the joke being with the pizza,
Yeah. The memes that have come up with the pizza.
Right.
We really are tired of pizza.
Well, yes, but it's literally a portable food that you can grab. You can literally eat it
on the go.
And people wonder why do you think managers choose that? Because you don't even have to sit. You don't even need a plate. Put that on a napkin and go. And to me, that is a really good way to sum up nursing in a sense, is you don't get a chance to sit down and eat a meal. Are you kidding?
No, I remember that one. I remember it being on the news where some lady who was like an official in some state said that all nurses do is sit down and play cards. We hardly have the chance to eat, let alone to sit down, let alone to be playing cards.
Right. If you see a nurse that is sitting, they're
like
documenting. Well, they're documenting. I mean, to be quite honest, they're documenting.
No, I mean, we spend a lot of time doing that. And sometimes we don't get to sit down to document. Sometimes we're still standing and documenting.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So I think last year has put a spotlight on our profession, like you said. And it's also given some people who had no sense of what we did an appreciation for what we really do.
And to think about some of the pay, and this is not really one of the points that we had, nurses go to school for a variety of amount of years, depending upon what you are. And if you just take on average a 4-year degree, if you were in IT, it is nothing for you to make $70,000, $80,000 a year in IT true. With a 4-year degree. And I mean, you can really grow that, in my opinion, probably pretty easily. In nursing, you'd have to fight tooth and nail to, on top of your degree, work countless hours to try to get that kind of pay.
Absolutely. I can imagine how much overtime.
And that doesn't count. Like, I get irritated when people are like, oh, well, nurses can make $70,000, $80,000 easy, just have to pick up an extra shift. Why is it that we have to work overtime to get an equal pay to another type of degree?
Well, it's not equal because you're working twice as hard. You're putting in twice the amount of work.
So I'm like, well, hold on. You can work 40 and get your 80,000 a year, but you want me to work 60 to get my $80,000 a year.
Correct.
That's not the same. The opportunity for overtime should be an opportunity if you want it. It shouldn't be the basis that you have to have that in order to make decent money. But how many nurses literally look at an extra shift like, oh, if I work 3 extra shifts, then I can pay for XYZ. Like, they literally, I mean, I know when I worked overtime, I'm like, right, well, let's break this down. If I work 2 extra shifts, then that's this, weekend that I want it to go on that'll pay for the room or whatever.
Absolutely. If you're a nurse, you're picking up all these shifts because you're already short-staffed. You can't go out and get a second job or get a third job or whatever, however it is. For a lot of people that work that 9 to 5 and have the opportunity to pick up a little part-time for summer or for Christmas or whatever. Nurses aren't that lucky. Unfortunately, we're kind of like, we're attached, period.
And I've been really surprised some of the stuff that I've been seeing on our social media where you have these RNs that have several years of experience. They're not making anything. I'm making more as an LPN at a 9 to 5 job, weekend and holidays off, than they're making in the hospital. I wouldn't even work for that.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that social media has kind of brought to light during this pandemic is that a lot of nurses are on there. They're sharing their experiences. They're telling you, the region, the pay,
I'm like,
a lot. And it's eye-opening.
I feel bad to even say, like, I'm an LPN working in an outpatient clinic and I make more than that.
I'm all for people pushing for higher education, and I will never put anybody down for higher education, ever.
No, but you should be compensated accordingly for that. I mean, if you've gone to school for several years longer than I have to be able to do more with your nursing.
No, I agree.
And you're working in these critical, high stress environments, that you should be compensated for that.
I think anybody should be compensated for education and experience.
And I would just, to me, I think that the more stressful the job, the more money you should make.
Absolutely. Honestly, I'm upset that nurses aren't like making 6 figures a year. I mean, even before the pandemic, we were already short and we were already working with our backs to the wall. It's definitely a profession that I'm hoping in the future people will see how hard it's been and
understand the value of nurses.
The value of, the medical profession, period. It's not just the nurse. I mean, all the way down to the aide, to the x-ray tech, to the respiratory tech, to, everybody, healthcare in general.
So we are going to start, we kind of broke this down into sections. The first one, we're going to talk a little bit about how, since nursing is the largest occupation in nurse care, that taking care of yourself is vital so that you can take care of others. And according to the American Nurses Association, their code of ethics says that more respect that nurses extend to all human beings extends to oneself as well. And the same duties that we owe to others, we owe to ourselves.
That's deep.
It really is. This huge association is saying you need to take care of yourself the way you take care of your patients. If you'll take time, if you'll sit there and tell patients that they need to do the right things to live a great, healthy life, then you need to make sure that you're taking the time to say, okay, I deserve that too.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why we tend to burn out. is because we're burning the candle at both ends.
Without a doubt. So if you take time for some self-reflection and really take inventory of the areas in your life that you feel unfulfilled, is it a physical thing? Is it a mental thing? Are you keeping your checkups with your doctors? Are you taking care of your own needs? If you are spiritual, are you making sure that you're going to whatever church, synagogue that you are involved with, whatever, for you to connect? Your relationships. Are you seeing your family regularly? Are you making plans with your friends? And I know that with the pandemic, that made that very hard, but you need to still make sure that you're connecting with people. We can FaceTime, you can Skype. There's so many other ways that you can connect with people if you choose to do so. Make sure that you're financially where you want to be, that you're setting your financial goals. Those are all part of taking care of yourself. It needs to start from the top to the bottom.
Absolutely.
From your mind to your physical health. It really does all come together. There are some things that we can do to not make it so overwhelming, because I think it's like, oh my gosh, you want me to add one more thing
onto your plate.
Yeah. But physically, okay, take the stairs instead of the elevator.
Park furthest away from the building.
Pack your lunch. Make sure you have healthy snacks that are readily available. Things like that. So that way, when you do get a chance to eat, even if it's 5 minutes of your time, what you're consuming is actually nourishing and will give you more energy.
Absolutely.
For your mental health, try new hobbies, audiobooks, podcasts. There are so many different things you can do. Journaling at night just to get your feelings out. It's all about taking that time to expand your own self. And when we say read, it doesn't necessarily have to be something educational. Like, I love a good murder mystery.
Oh, I do too. I love some James Patterson.
Yes.
I really do. And some of us don't really have the time to read. That's why I love these audiobooks or these podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just listen as you go.
And kind of get into your own world. Emotionally, you just want to make sure that you're able to find the humor in things. If you watch a comedy skit and you can't laugh ever, like, there's something else going on there. You got to be able to give your permission to laugh, cry, to feel your emotions, try to figure out what's going on to where you can actually let loose.
I mean, the saying is, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of believe it.
Yeah.
And there's another saying that says it takes less muscles in your face to smile than it does to frown.
Yep.
I mean, these are like real things. It truly works.
It really does. And you can trick your mind. It's kind of bad to say that, but you really can trick your mind into being in a good mood. Mm-hmm. But you have to take those steps. You also emotionally make sure that you are mindful, that you connect with a higher power, meditate, volunteer, you can declutter. There's so many different ways that you can help with your emotional state. And living in a mess, I'm telling you, that
it overwhelms me.
It does me as well. Like, it has to be clean and organized. And with this podcast and everything else that Rose and I have going on in our lives, we both have new jobs. Mm-hmm. We both have a podcast we're trying to do, which we both love.
I love this.
This is our passion. Mm-hmm. We have our real estate course that we're
trying to take. Yes.
We have a life. We have a family. So we have a ton of stuff. But I'm going to tell you, we both have planners.
Yes.
And you can't read Rose's because it's in cursive. But mine, they're all a hot mess. I mean, but that's how we are able to.
That's my declutter. Yeah, that's my decluttering and how I can organize my life. Because sometimes some people need it a little bit more than others. I feel like at Christmas, a lot of people might get some organizers.
A lot of people start the new year like that. Like, I'm going to organize some things. We're going to go through some things. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to sound like your mom, because this is what I tell my kids. If you use it, put it back where you got it from.
Oh my God.
And then all of a sudden, stuff stays clean.
Just saying.
But those little things make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're keeping your relationships, keeping connected. If you never reach out to people, never have somebody that, like, I can call Rosa at any time and be like, I just got a vent. And I can just sit there and spew for 20 minutes. And she just sitting there on the phone. She really ain't got to be listening. She might just give me every now and then. And then you just feel so much better. You have to have that person that you can go to and
Just talk it
just
out.
talk. And sometimes you have to have somebody other than your significant other. I love my husband to death, but if I'm mad at him, I need somebody to yell about him too.
I'm just
For
saying.
real. Like,
It's true. Like if you're having a little squabble or whatever, like my husband's my best friend, yes, whatever.
Right.
But when we're squabbling, he ain't my best friend.
no,
He's probably like on the top of my shit list. And right now you're not my favorite person.
right.
So yeah, I'm going to call somebody and be like, can you believe what he did? And da 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 da.
And I don't need you to talk bad about him. I just need you to listen to me talk bad about him.
That's right. And you just be like, I'll support whatever you do.
Yeah. And and then you're good to go. And then later on, you're like, he was so sweet.
Well, I think that's, as a little off topic, I think that's one thing that's different between men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Like men want to fix stuff.
Yes.
And we just want somebody to listen to us.
Correct.
So a lot of the squabbles are because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, girl, I just told him this and he's sitting here trying to fix it. And all I wanted him to say is, yes, I understand and I agree.
Exactly. Like I can fix it myself, but I just want to bitch about it for a few minutes.
Yeah, you just need somebody to amen and validate your feelings.
Right.
So we do have a good circle of girlfriends that we can do that too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that finding other people and connecting with those people is a good way to do that. And if you don't have a person that you can connect with, then maybe it's time for you to find a hobby, and that way you can reach out to people that are like-minded like you. Like if you love to crochet, find a group. There's people out there that like to crochet, and then that way you can start with a common interest, and then those relationships grow from there.
Absolutely.
And then lastly, like go get your hair done, go get your nails done, run yourself a bubble bath, whatever your thing is. Take some time for yourself, and it doesn't have to cost anything. I can literally pour myself a cup of coffee and sit on my phone and just relax.
Coffee and do nothing. Book sounds great to me.
Yeah, and that's just kind of my thing. When I take a few minutes every night to read, I feel like I've done something for myself. Mm-hmm. Take, a few minutes, do yoga, do some stretching. It doesn't have to be anything huge. Just take a few minutes for yourself.
Start small. I don't think some people get intimidated and think, oh, yoga, oh my God, like that's going to be 35, 45 minutes, an hour of my life. No. But it's really not. Just take a pose or two. That's probably less than 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And you can start off small, little blocks, 5, 10, 15, you really 20, can. 25, 30.
And we did a podcast on self-care, self-love, and there were studies that showed an hour of yoga a week decreased stress levels. Mm-hmm. That's less than 10 minutes a day.
Absolutely. Start small.
Yep.
You don't have to conquer the world in one day.
Absolutely not.
Learning how to give and responding to criticism can be extremely difficult. I've always believed that you can truly say whatever you want to say as long as you're saying it in a respectful way. Yeah. I think anybody who knows me probably has heard me say that like 1,000 times, but it's because your approach is everything, whether it's approaching your coworkers or approaching your patient, or approaching family members. Like how you come across makes the world of difference.
It really does.
If you're the person that's actually like receiving the criticism, take a deep breath, inhale, exhale, woo-saw it out. But don't be so like defensive. Actually listen to what's being explained, and the feedback that you're getting, and just be respectful. We all make mistakes.
Yep.
And we just have to own it and recognize it. Say, hey, my bad. Or, I'll eat that because that was my mistake. And while you're marinating on that, keep it to yourself. It's nobody else's business.
No.
Nobody else's business. And so keep it to yourself and make sure that you're focusing like on the bigger picture. Like what is your end goal? Whether it's the job that you're working with, or if it's, any type of religious outreach you're volunteering in, or whatever it may be. Like, what is your end goal? What are your goals and plans? And is this the direction that you want to see yourself going?
I think it's hard for anybody to receive criticism. Nobody wants to hear that they've done something wrong, or that what they're doing is subpar.
Yeah.
But you can't fix a problem if you don't know that you have it. So
Absolutely.
the very first thing that you have to do is recognize if the criticism is accurate. So if somebody tells you something and you automatically get defensive, it's probably accurate.
That's why I'm like, you have to like take that breath.
You have
and
to
woosah.
pause. Yeah.
Yeah. And let it sink in for a minute.
Mhm.
Because maybe they are right, but maybe they've got it all wrong.
Right.
So that's why you need to take that second to
Mhm.
take that inhale, exhale, woosah, and be like, okay, I hear and understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
I feel and whatever you're feeling.
Right. And then that way you know that you're both on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially with me at a new place, I'm still learning all the protocols, the ins and outs. And if somebody says, hey, we actually do it this way, I'm like the first one to be like, oh, okay, great. Didn't know that. Or
well, if you
just
have
move on
questions,
from it.
because sometimes I do, I'm like,
yeah,
okay, thank you for telling me that, but can you explain to me why it's this way so that I'll have better understanding?
And that I'm a firm believer that just telling somebody to do something is not the best way to get them to do it.
No.
I'm a very much, if you explain to them why things are done a certain way and how that affects outcomes, then all of a sudden they will do it.
Or they may even have a
better
way of doing it.
Absolutely.
Communication is just so important. So like, don't be in your feelings. We all fall short. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. It's about what we learn from the situation that determines how we handle the future.
Absolutely.
And I mean, even with the person that's giving the criticism, never shame people in front of other people. I have a thing about that.
I do too.
I think it's so disrespectful.
And
unprofessional. Absolutely 100%. Don't ever shame anybody in public. If you're having to give somebody some criticism, offer it in private. Pull them aside. It only takes 2 seconds to say, I really think that the tone that you had addressed us with was kind of inappropriate. It was a little harsh. Like maybe in the future, you may want to have your delivery be a little softer. It might be more received.
Well, and my thing is, this doesn't go for just like, supervisor to subordinate.
No, I think it's for
this
everybody.
Is across the board.
Yeah, like even your friends.
If you have an issue with anybody, especially at work, you just want to make sure that you're keeping to a certain level of professionalism.
Absolutely.
If somebody's doing something wrong, like literally going up to that person being like, hey, do you know, when you did this, that we typically on this unit have a protocol to where we approach that this way. And they may say, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah, they probably never even thought about it.
And they thank you, which is what I usually do. Like, I'm going to say, thank you for letting me know. Thank you for saying something to me. And that way they can make that correction. And then don't go tell everybody that you told them. Don't go do all this stuff.
Nobody else's business, for peace sakes.
Just slide in there, say it, and then retract. And then it's all good to go. And you can, if it's something that is to a level of, if they keep doing it, it's going to cause issues. You can send an email to your supervisor saying, hey, I saw such and such do this. I explained to them that this is the protocol. I just wanted to let you be aware that it happened, but that I already explained that this is the way we do it. So hopefully it won't happen again. But if it does, you may need to approach them because this obviously didn't work. Because we are dealing with people's health in nursing.
In nursing, absolutely. And I think we have to be objective. Like I was telling you the story about stand up yesterday. Be objective, never blame a person, leave your personal feelings outside of it. So I find people to be a lot of times judgmental, and sometimes that judgment comes into conversation where it really shouldn't even need to be. So if we're here talking about a particular policy or procedure, your judgment about it, unless it's hurting someone, has nothing to do with the situation. So don't try blaming other people. Just keep your feelings out. Now, if you're reprimanding somebody, that's a totally different situation.
Right.
But when you're speaking to somebody and trying to give criticism, you just want to keep it to the facts.
Yes.
And you want to be tactful. Like I said, you can say anything in the world that you want to. It just depends on how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
Use constructive language. I feel, we, not you. Because when you say you, it's a form of blame.
Yeah. Well, and then that person's automatically going to be defensive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you need to develop that kind of no blame culture in your work society. You know what I mean? You want your coworkers to come in and you want them to feel like they're appreciative, that they're being held accountable, not blamed. There's a difference between accountability
yes,
and being blamed.
Saying that it's a no blame culture, I'm going to tell you, Rosa and I are not from the nobody's held accountable generation.
No, we work our asses off.
And we're not all winners.
No.
Okay. So I'm definitely to the point to where if you do something wrong, you need to be accountable for your actions. And if you are accountable for your actions, all of a sudden things disappear. Problems disappear. All this rigmarole goes away. If you own a mistake that you make, all of a sudden, all the crap disappears. I've made a mistake. I've owned it before. And then everybody's just like, oh, well, what happened? I'm like, nothing happened. What do you mean what happened? I made a mistake. I fixed it. Everything's taken care of. We're all on the same page. And everybody's like, oh. Because I didn't just lie about it or say I'm not taking
it up.
Exactly. Because once you do that, that's when all the stuff happens.
There's a level in trust in that with taking accountability.
Oh, absolutely.
So, it's just important. It builds trust. It builds relationships. It builds rapport.
Yep.
So if you start off being accountable and being responsible for your actions, 99% of the time, all somebody wants to hear is, you're sorry. Like, yes, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I will try not to do that again.
Right. And then at that point, the only thing you can do is move on.
Correct. And that's what you should do. You should listen to whomever you're criticizing, giving constructive criticism to, try to be empathetic. Everybody has an off day. You never know what goes on behind closed doors.
Correct.
A loved one might have died, or your child might be extremely ill, or
somebody could be in the middle of a divorce.
Exactly.
You don't know.
You don't know what's going on. And maybe it was just like a bad day for them. And you just have to pull them aside and say, you know what? Today wasn't your best day. Is there anything going on that I can help you be a better version of you?
Well, and you
help
can
me
approach
help
that
you
very easily. You can say somebody has an off day. You're not even going to say anything. If somebody had an off day that I worked with that they were just not themselves, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm going to automatically in my mind, I'm going to think something ain't right.
Yeah, like that was an off day.
Whatever.
But if you have a lot of
if those are
days,
reoccurring,
yeah,
all you have to do is approach and say, your work isn't been what it has been. I know what your work ethic is. You seem like you've been off. Is everything okay at home? And I'm going to tell you that statement can go a long way.
A very long way, because now you're building rapport and trust with your coworkers or with your employees. It's just very important. I think communication overall, and not just speaking. I think the most important part of communication is listening.
That's why you got 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Absolutely.
With all of this, I think your mindset is key. If you keep a positive mindset and you try to find the positive in everything, then you're going to find it.
Absolutely. If you go looking for trouble, you'll find it. So try looking.
No matter what you look for.
Exactly.
You will find it.
You'll find it.
Since 2020 was, I think, a difficult year for just about everyone. People have lost, their loved ones. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives. I mean, you have people that have lost their jobs, so they'll lose their houses. They can lose their cars.
Some people lost everything last year.
It's sad. And I think that with so many people facing these negative moments, it is hard to find the silver lining. But in the nursing career, because those are the people that you're going to come in contact with. I came in contact with a woman the other day. I brought her back and I said, hey, how are you doing today? And she burst into tears.
Lord.
And I was like, okay. Wasn't expecting that.
Okay, let's take a second.
What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't her health. Her husband's an alcoholic. They just moved to the area. They were there to retire. The last 6 months, his drinking has picked up. They've been arguing every day, and they were about to get a divorce.
That's a lot.
And he had never had an issue until he retired. And so their retirement, which is supposed to be this wonderful time of the year.
Yeah, the happiest moments that they're supposed to have together.
It's been awful.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that all this happened in the middle of this pandemic. So it just made everything worse. So it had nothing to do with her health, her mental health, but not her physical health, which is what we're there to take care of. But we had to restructure this appointment, like automatically, hands down. And she's just like, I'm going to be by myself. You know, there's not going to be anybody there to help me. And I looked at her and I said, I'm saying this with the most amount of respect that I can. And she looked at me. I said, if your husband's there and he's drunk all the time, you are doing this by yourself.
That's 100% true.
And she looked at me and she said, I've never thought of it that way. You don't have help. If he's passed out on the couch, you have nobody there.
She is pretty much by herself.
You are by yourself. There's a person in the house, but that
is a warm body.
And so that's where, you know, you really do. It's all about perception, because she had never thought of it that way. And I told her, I was like, you know, you're going to have a really big conversation where he's either going to have to get help or it's just not going to work. And then your 30 years of your working life together is going to be the end of the marriage. And sure enough, she came back in and they had a long conversation and he's going into rehab.
I'm so happy that has a positive outcome.
But there's so many that don't.
That's
and
right.
We have to recognize that as, you know, healthcare workers. So I do think that making sure that you're in a good mindset to help others, making yourself a priority is very important. On top of that, you want to make sure that if there's people in your workplace that are constantly negative, you need to avoid them. You have to be able to go to work and be around people that are positive.
And we've talked about that in previous podcasts about cutting out the toxicity and learning how to like build your own community.
Yes. And it might be small and that's okay.
I'm okay with a tribe. I don't need a whole village.
No. And it's funny because I have made the comment several times. I have a handful of friends and that is all that I need. Don't mean this to be ugly, but I'm not looking to make new friends. I love to make new acquaintances. I love to meet people. I love to talk to people.
We're friendly. Our cards are full.
Yes. But for right now, I have the maximum amount of friends that I can have that I feel like I can reach out to and stay in constant connection with and feel good about those relationships.
Absolutely. And I'm glad, like, we have a lot of individuals in our circle. Like, you don't have to talk to them every single day.
No.
You don't have to even call them every single day. You know, we text each other throughout the week. You know, we have conversations throughout the week. It's not one of those things that you have to do like every single day because we all have families. We all are working. We all understand.
Yes. And I mean, it might be one thing for one of us to say something. It might be 3 days later for somebody to respond, but then nobody's upset about it. Nobody is.
And their feelings, they're not, you know.
There's none of that. And I think I think it's a rarity to find. I think that we are very lucky to have the friends that we have. But in a way, I think being selective and making sure that the people that we're hanging out with are not toxic has made that easier.
Absolutely.
Having a good work-life balance will also keep you in a good mindset. If you do nothing but work all the time and people at your job are negative, then you are the people that you hang around with. You will become negative,
which we've talked about in a previous podcast.
And so I think that it's really important to make sure that if you are in a work environment where there's a lot of people that are negative, that you speak up.
Absolutely.
And you need to say, you know, it's a bad day. I understand that, but bitching about it is not going to change our patient nurse ratio. We need to do what we can to work together
As a
to
team,
give.
it's not going to last always.
Mhm.
You know, you always have to try to find that silver lining and, be that, be the big bird
Yes.
in a world full of Eeyores.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because you have no idea what's going on in someone else's life. And sometimes just saying a hello or a smile or a how you're doing makes the world of difference to a coworker or to a patient or to family. In saying all that, I think what we're just trying to say is be the nurse that you want to work with.
Right. If there's something wrong or there's a problem, find a way to fix it.
Absolutely. If something's wrong, find a way to change it. This is part of that whole teamwork effort.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work for this director who constantly would tell the staff to stop complaining.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd say, if there was a problem that's big enough to complain about and you want to bring to anybody's attention, that you should at least think about that problem and a solution to go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
After working like a lot of years of burnout and not having a work-life balanced, I returned to an office setting because I was burnt out working in assisted living. And walking in, I saw all these sorts of problems and issues. And I actually took what that former director said. It marinated and it still sticks with me even today.
Yep.
And anytime I have a complaint or an issue or I see a problem, I will always make sure that I bring any of that with a suggestion so that, yeah, it's a problem, but we have a solution.
Right.
Let's
At that
try
point,
it.
you're not complaining.
Yeah.
You're stating a problem and a way to fix it. And, if they're like, no, I don't agree with that. Well, great. What's their suggestion?
Exactly.
At least you're not coming empty handed and you can say, okay, well, that was just the one solution that I had thought about. What
other
what are your
solutions?
thoughts?
If you've heard the issue before and you have other solutions, let's try to figure it out. Don't be the complainer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Bring things to people's attention, but also try to find solutions for the issues that come up
Exactly.
in your professional and your personal life.
And things will run so much more smoothly.
I agree.
As always, you can find our references on our website, thenursingpostpodcast.com. You can subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and, of course, leave your comments or thoughts there. And again, thank you for listening to The Nursing Post.